The Bay of Naples in Italy is known for its beauty with volcanic hills surrounding it, including the still active Mount Vesuvius. In the story The Last Leaf by O. Henry, the Bay of Naples symbolizes life. For my guest, Becky Lukovic, the Bay of Naples has also served as an inspiration to her in her career in the travel industry. Let's see what adventures we can find with Becky Lukovic. Welcome to Journey with Jake. This is a podcast about adventure and how through our adventures we can overcome the challenges of life that come our way. While I expect you will learn some things about different adventures, this show will entertain you. Each episode will feature a different guest or guests as they share experiences and stories from the different adventures they have been on. Not only will you be entertained, but you will also hear the failures and trials each guest faces and what they have done or are doing to overcome the hardships that come their way. My goal is to take each of us on a journey through the experiences of my guests with the hope that you'll be entertained and inspired to overcome your day-to-day challenges. After all, it's not all about the destination as it is about the journey. Welcome back to the show. I'm so happy you're here. My name is Jake Bushman, and I'm the host of Journey with Jake. Before we get into my conversation with Becky Lukovic, if you have not done so, please subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to your podcast. I would also love it if you could leave me a rating and review. That would mean a lot to me. Journey with Jake is available on YouTube. I'm still learning and growing on YouTube with my editing skills, but it's getting better, and I know some of you like to watch the episodes on YouTube, so just search for Journey with Jake podcast on YouTube and check out the show over there. And be sure to subscribe and like the show on YouTube as well. Finally, I'm most active on Instagram, so give me a follow and say hi on Instagram at Journey with Jake Podcast. Journey with Jake is also part of the Podmatch Podcast Network. If you're looking for some great podcasts to listen to, check out the Podmatch Podcast Network by visiting podmatch.com/network. Becky Lukovic is another impressive adventurer and traveler. From guerrilla trekking in Uganda to hiking in Patagonia, she loves to get out and travel. So much so that travel is her career. Becky is the owner of Bella Travel Company, and it was fun to dig into the career side of travel as well with Becky. If you like this episode, you will also enjoy episode 84 with Jamie Edwards about her explorations around the world. Okay, let's get to my conversation with Becky Lukovic. All right, I'm excited today. I have Becky Lukovic on the show with me today. Becky, welcome to Journey with Jake.
Hey, thanks. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. This is always fun for me when I get to meet different people. Someone like you who's traveled all over the place. I always have fun because you have so many different stories, different experiences. Before we dive into that, like I always do on the show, I want to know a little bit about who Becky is. So if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about who you are.
Absolutely. So, I grew up in the great state of Arkansas, the natural state. Go Razorbacks. Definitely an SEC football fan, of course. And, growing up in Arkansas, it really fostered in me this love of adventure and this curiosity about the natural world, about different cultures, because in Arkansas, we had this, kind of confluence of, French explorers, Spanish explorers, Native Americans, and then just a hodgepodge of, hill people and Delta people who lived on the Delta and all that. It really, growing up there and spending my summers in the lakes and the rivers and the mountains really fostered in me this need to explore. You want to be Pocahontas on the canoe, like looking for, telling the guys where to go, that kind of things. Fast forward into my adulthood, I found that after backpacking through Europe a few times, I found that I really wanted to see more of the world. And I found that so many things on my life list had to do with travel and had to do not just like checking things off my list. I'm not really a list checker as far as destinations, but I want to see it. I have FOMO. It's like, oh, I want to do that. I want to do that. I want to go, looking through National Geographic as a kid. I don't know if you did that, but it's like, yeah. I want to go there. I want to go to Tanzania and Madagascar and, Lake Titicaca and, Peru and the Andes, all that jazz. So I realized that this thing called travel was calling me. And so I was planning my travel for friends, as many in my industry do. We kind of find ourselves in the spot of a consultant with other people for free just because it's the overflow of our passion. And so I had spent hundreds of hours on this trip to go to the Amalfi Coast in Italy. And I'm sitting there, it's right at the beginning of the 2000s, and I'm overlooking the Bay of Naples, standing there going, oh, God, this was awesome. I could do this for a living. I'm like, I don't even know who would hire me. And for me, travel agents were the people who did things that, that offered things I didn't want to do. They offered very pre-planned, very programmed. I just wanted to teach people how to be more intrepid and curious travelers. And so I'm like, you know what? I'm going to be a consultant. I'm going to tell people, like, work on their itineraries, how to do things. And so I'm like, all right, well, let's get some education and let's do it. Let's start a business. And so I did. I went to travel school. It was an online travel school, and yeah, so learned a few things, and then said, all right, I'm in it to win it, and started my career in travel, and then eventually, after a few years, I realized that in the beginning, although I thought I was too cool for school in that, luxury travel, if you stay in a luxury hotel, you're so insulated from all the people, and you can't have an authentic, you have to stay in a hostel to have an authentic experience. And then I realized, well, you know what? A lot of times, if you travel in a very high level way, in a very high end way, you can spend time with a local artist who has friends who are artists, and learn to paint, and take lessons with the best baker in Saint Germain in Paris, and learn how to make baguettes on the coals there, in the sixth arrondissement, and all that. And so I'm like, so to me, the more I got into travel, the more I realized that the luxury space was my space, not because of the money, but actually because I can do really cool stuff, like really cool stuff.
That's cool because I think, and you packed a lot there, and there's a bunch of stuff I want to get to. But going the most recent thing about the luxury part of it, I think that's what a lot of people think of. Even me in my mind, I'm like, oh, luxury, yeah, they're insulated. They're just off in their little high-end suite. I didn't realize all the specialty experiences and things you can do with luxury. Like you said, working with a chef or doing an artist, things like that I never even thought of before. It's
Yeah,
awesome.
meeting with a local, having dinner with a family, going into India and Cochin, and being on this houseboat with and get to know these families and things like that. There's so many things that you can do experiential wise. And all luxury properties aren't just right there on the Champs-Elysees. There's also in Paris, there's also ones that are tucked away in these little villages. I mean, yeah, it's definitely something that I had to come to find that just price point does not mean either way that you can't have an authentic experience.
Love that. All right, let's go back to Arkansas. That's where you grew up. Rivers, lakes, trees, exploration. And I know on your Instagram it says your name and then it says explorer. What is it about exploring? What is it that, got you excited?
I think, oh, that is such a good question. For me, exploring, I mean, especially as a woman, and I mean, as a person too, but, as a woman, sometimes, we're not afforded the luxury of wanting to be an explorer. And so we end up being more of a caretaker, or, "Oh, I'm going to hurt my nails," and all this stuff. And so that really resonated with me because as an explorer, you matter. You get to discover, and you get to, like, find the secret trails, and see the vistas, and just hang out there and scale the rocks. And there's this feeling of accomplishment with exploration. And A, finding something new, B, sometimes living through it. It's like, oh my gosh, I didn't die. You get in a precarious situation, you're like, whoo, that was close. and all that. So I think it just really, hits my heart in this way that you're an important part of that story. And I think as a woman, you want to be an important part of this big epic story, right?
Awesome. I love it. The other thing you talked about going to Europe and backpacking. Before I get to that, even siblings, anything like, what was the family situation like?
I have a younger sister. She's about 3 years younger than me, and we are. I love my sister. She's one of the smartest women I know. We're built differently. I'm more the explorer. She's more, yoga, Pilates, and all that. Yeah, I mean, she will definitely explore. I love it. She's always ready to do that. But, we're definitely, I'm the extrovert, she's the introvert. But, we were close in age, but not, not like right there together.
Gotcha. And now, married, kids, anything like that for you personally?
At the moment, no. Oh, kids, yes. I do
Okay.
I have two grown kids. Sorry, kids, I almost forgot about you.
They're just the kids, right?
Overrated. So yeah, my son just got married this year. My daughter's been married for a number of years, and she and her husband have two kiddos. So I'm a Mimi, and but yeah, so I have two kids, not married, living the life here in Atlanta. Living the Buckhead lives.
There you go. Atlanta. Love it. All right. Awesome. So you live in Atlanta now. So you went from Arkansas. I think at one point you were in Indiana, if I'm not mistaken. I think
I
I saw that on
was.
your
I
bio.
lived.
Okay.
Yeah, I lived there 20 some odd years. So
Oh,
raised my
wow.
kids there on a very, very, very large farm,
Oh, very
like
nice.
1,800, 2,000 acres, something like that. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Very good. And now you're in Atlanta doing the Buckhead thing. Awesome. So you went off and explored Europe, backpacking, whatever. But then you talked about the Bay of Naples, I believe is what you said. And that's where you kind of had that moment where you're like, I can do this. Kind of describe that to me a little bit. What was the temperature like? What were you feeling? What did you see? Kind of give me the details of what that experience was like.
Oh, sure. Okay. So yeah, so we were um walking into town, our little hotel, cozy little hotel overlooking the a little baby sliver of the ocean. Was just, I don't know, maybe like a 10-minute walk from town. So I was walking like into town, and then there was just this small little traffic bridge with a little sidewalk on the side, and temperature, it was a brisk April morning. I was wearing my favorite jean jacket that had a little sparkle on it.
Pretty
And
good.
I looked, and so in the Bay of Naples, how that sits, how that situates itself is it was morning, and so you have that where, I mean, it's not too misty, but you have a little bit of morning misty because it's spring, and it's clearing, so it's not quite foggy, but just a little misty. So you see Vesuvio, the volcano. So some of the old timers there, his name is Vesuvio. He's a man, not Vesuvius or Vesuvius. So Vesuvio was there, and he makes this like cone shape like this, and he looks almost like purpley color because he's kind of back in the background, and he's the color of lava rock, but it makes him look a little purpley. So he's standing there, and I'm looking at this, seeing him on the other side of the water, just going, it's like I'm in paradise. And then, being the kind of person I am, I being an extrovert, if I do anything, I want like 50 of my friends with me doing it. The more the merrier. And so I'm like, how can I get more people to do this? And so I immediately wanted to share this experience with other people. And again, it's that experience of exploration, of seeing this view. And I have this thing about views that make me feel small. I love to have a view where I feel tiny, 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 and everything feels big. And it just opens your mind because you're just like, wow, the earth is really big, and I'm gazing on something super special. And so I wanted to share it. And that's kind of how that why I wanted to start this business, because it was out of that abundance of my passion, because I wanted other people to experience that.
Well, I love the fact that you took your passion, you took something that you love, and are making that a career out of that. I think so many people would like to do that, and I don't think they've been able to do that. I know I've struggled with that. So I think I commend you for doing that, for taking that risk and doing that. I look at travel and I think, how do they make a living at it? Like, how do you do? Because when I was a kid growing up, there were travel agents, but you had to have them because they're the ones who booked the airline tickets. You couldn't, there was no such thing as internet when I was a kid. It's like you had to go through travel agents. And then, internet comes along, and next thing you know, travel agencies are just going away. So how do you do it? How do you run your business? What's your business all about? I guess is what I'm asking.
Oh, sure. And I think you'll find if you look at the numbers today, the number of people in the travel industry, it's really booming. And because it's becoming more of a consultative. And
Gotcha.
so the internet kind of takes you for your word of, okay, I want the cheapest room with a pool and an ocean view that's there. And then you look at a few pictures and like, done, kind of thing. And then, you look on, various sites to see, oh, okay, what kind of activities do I want to do? And, you're like, okay, done. For example, and then I'm going to jump into what you say. For example, some people will say, oh, I want to go to the red light district in Amsterdam. I just had a friend say that to me. And I'm like, okay, well, tell me what you're seeing. And I'm looking at that. I'm like, okay, these, even though they say red light Amsterdam tours, they don't do that anymore. And then in the fine print, it's like, we actually don't go to the red light district. We have the tour and we say, there it is, bye bye.
Interesting.
And so, and because there's so many options and so many decisions to be made, I mean, your vacation, even if you have a bazillion dollars, it's an investment. It costs a bazillion dollars to go anywhere and to have a great experience. And so, why leave it to chance for reviews of people you don't even know? You don't even know if their idea of a great restaurant is Waffle House because it's cheap. You don't know where they're coming from. And so a professional gives you that perspective because I plan trips every single day, usually over the weekend, usually at nights too. But every single day, I have my hands in travel. A lot of my friends, my colleagues, we're sharing. They're planning travel every day, so we hear it, we see it, we see the pitfalls. We meet with the people who are the director of sales, the general managers, the owners of these properties. So I get to sit in front of them at dinner and go, "Hey, what do you love most about your hotel? What are you most excited about this year about your hotel?" And so that, to me, that's the best part about my industry. And so then fast forwarding into, how the business works, there's different ways of arranging, there are different business models in the travel industry. My personal business model is I'm fee based. So you pay me, a planning fee or a yearly subscription fee. And basically you get my advice, you get my recommendations. And then when you're traveling, if something happens and your flight's delayed or there's a train strike or whatever, I'm just a text away or a WhatsApp away. And so you have somebody to say, I got you. It's like, I know there's volcanic ash everywhere. I've had this happen before. Here's the next step. I've got you. And so that's the model that I have. It's that you have a person who helps you.
That's cool. I like that. And I think so. I'm sitting here thinking, because I'm in my mind, I'm like, my mind's kind of spinning. Like, what would I do? What do I need help with? When you are talking to prospective clients or someone who wants your service, how much effort are you putting in to get to know who they are and what's involved with that part of it? Because it seems to me like you'd want to know kind of some of their likes, dislikes before you can just say. Otherwise, you're just doing the same thing as the internet just in person.
Yeah, for sure. So when somebody pings me and we have an exploratory call or email or virtual call, some kind of Zoom or some sort of situation like that. So the first thing I do is I rattle off, I call it my 20 questions. There may be 20, there may not be 20, but somewhere around in there. But I'm asking questions like, what's on, or let's say you want to go to Thailand. And I'm like, okay, so tell me, what draws you to Thailand? Like, what's interesting? Why Thailand? What do you hope to experience there? Not what destinations do you want to see, but what do you hope to experience there? And then it's like, like the would you rather, okay, tell me, city or country, or do you want to drive? Do you want to not drive? Do you want wildlife? Do you want spa? Do you want all these things? And so, but I started asking all these questions beyond what's your budget, how many nights, da, da, da. And so we have that discourse, how active do you want to be? So some people need and want to be, they want to be go, go, go. If they have a blank space, they are freaked out about it. And they honestly want to go, go, go. And some people, it's like, I just can't every day. And so it's like, how do you want the pacing? Do you want to stay in one place the whole time? This and that and the other. And sometimes they have an idea in their mind already what they want to do. And, a lot of times we talk about that because it's like, okay, so you have 10 days and you want to see 6 countries and 2 cities in each country because it's so close. I'm already there. It's like, let's talk about that. And, or you want to go to Hawaii and in your mind, you're thinking Maui, but you're like, hey, I want to go to Waikiki Beach. Well, let's talk about that. Are you okay with being in a city with a beach? Do you want to be more out? That kind of thing. So a lot of that happens. And then when I send my onboarding documents, I also have things like, tell me your best vacation and why. Tell me your worst vacation experience and why. It's like, what stresses you out about travel? What excites you about travel? What kind of restaurants do you like? Do you like trendy restaurants? Do you like casual? Do you like, world class, Michelin star, top 50, top 100 restaurants? So we ask so many questions because, like you said, I want to get to know my people, and that's important to me.
Yeah, I like that because sometimes I think people like me, if I were to ask you, like, I've never been to Europe and I want to go to Europe, I don't know if I would know some of the stuff to even ask or some of the stuff to tell you without you asking me certain things. Well, do you like this or do you like that? Do you like? And so I love that. I love that approach because that's consultative, I guess. I mean, that's the whole
Yeah.
idea behind it. And I love that because I know for someone like me who's like never been to Europe but wants to go, that would help me out because I don't really know what to do. Do I go here? Do I go there? How do I get around? Do I, this, that?
And,
Sounds like a
and
great
most
way.
importantly, some of the other questions I'd ask, like, for example, I'd ask you, are you a soccer fan? Do you want to go see a soccer game? And that would even depend on, the time of year you would go. Do you
Mm-hmm.
want to see a soccer game? Do you want to go do wine appointments? Do you want to go to a brewery? Do you want to go for a run? Do you want to drive a Ferrari in the countryside of Italy? Just like naming these things like spaghetti to stick on the wall and go, yes, I want to do that. Yes, I want to do that. I'm not into that. That kind of thing. And so those things, do you want it to be warm? Are you okay with cool? Do you want ocean? Do you like mountains? Do you, want to be in the countryside? Do you want little markets in some little town that you walk to every single day and you have this little coffee place? But as we converse, I start understanding what you want. And then that's how I make my recommendation.
Love it. What's cool about travel to me too is there's all types of different kinds of travel. You've got family outing type stuff. You've got like romantic getaways. There's a segment that I hear about quite often, especially because I do this show, but I hear about adventure travel. And so when someone says, hey, I want adventure travel, what does that spark in your mind when you first hear that? What kind of goes through your mind when you hear adventure travel?
I mean, for me, since I'm in the industry, I mean, it just brings up all kinds of questions. It's like, well, what kind of adventures? And because somebody's adventure one person's adventure may be going on a hike or maybe going on a hot air balloon ride, in the south part of Spain and ending with a glass of cava and breakfast. And that was a great adventure. And some people want their hikers on for an entire week and maybe not even shower and see all the animals and hike all the peaks and, all that. So it really depends, there's really not one bucket for adventure because one person's adventure may be on a cruise ship, going to a
Yeah.
few really cool ports, and so it really depends. For me, adventure, I like to do those moments, to experience those moments that just make you go, wow, like gorilla trekking, when gorilla trekking in Uganda. I've been to Antarctica. and walked on the continent, which was way more spectacular than I even thought because I'm not a cold girl. I went for the penguins and fell in love with the mountains. I didn't even know there was mountains there. It's like, how did I not know that there's these gorgeous mountains here? And and all that. There's so many things you can do. You can be an elephant keeper for a day in Thailand. To me, that's adventure.
Well, that's perfect because you answered my question. The one question I typically ask on the show is, what does adventure mean to you? And you kind of spilled it right there with that. I do want to dive into this gorilla in Uganda, if you don't mind.
I don't mind.
Give me the background and kind of tell me about this because it seems incredible.
Oh my goodness, it has been on my list forever and ever and ever. So when I had the opportunity to go, I jumped on it. My schedule was so full, and everybody's like, you're going somewhere?" I'm like, "Yes, I am going gorilla and chimpanzee trekking." So the chimpanzee trekking actually was super freaking cool too, and both are off trail. And but the gorilla trekking definitely has the most wow factor just because they're such huge animals. But yeah, so you're up in a mountain. So only a certain number of gorilla families. So gorillas have this little family unit. And so they habituate them. So the rangers, they have doctors, they have scientists, and they have this whole program. We spoke to this researcher, doctor guy who lived there, visited there a lot and lived there part of the year, and focusing on gorilla habituation, diseases, things like that. And so some gorillas stay wild, and they don't ever have people there, but the families who do, they have, I don't know how many times a week, but they get one small group of people, like 6, 7, 8 people a day, not every day of the week, come and visit them for 1 hour and 1 hour only. And so basically what happens is you get up in the morning and then you're assigned a family. And so there were, I don't know, a handful of groups, and then we each had our own family. And so then we met our ranger and our other guides and porters and things like that. And basically it was like you saw this piece of paper. It was like the Brady Bunch. And so it showed, okay, here's this silverback. He's the head silverback. And then we had 2 silverbacks. And then they all had names and when they were born, how old they were. And then, all the mamas, and there was a little baby, and there was some little teenagers, and this one is a troublemaker, and this one's really nice, and, all that jazz.
So they gave you it was like a paper that showed like the family that you were about to visit, basically. Very cool. Okay, I like that.
If you look on Instagrams, I think it's either on my stories or my pictures. I think I have that on my Insta, either stories or the pictures. Just that picture of that, I think, or it might be on my blog. But yeah, and then you go up, and so ours, what they do is they start the trek from where they last saw them, like the night before. And so the guys go and kind of check and say, yep, they're still kind of in this area. So our family was at the tip top of the mountain. So it took about, I don't know, 25 minutes to get to the top of the mountain via car. And then we made the way down till we found them. And so you're off trail and you have to wear all this gear. So you have to wear gaiters, and then you have to like tuck your pants in your socks because the ants are biting ants. They like, you have to cover your neck and everything, because I got bit a bunch of times and it hurts. And, so there's these like biting ants. There's also these like the palms, like how like the house plant palms are, and so they're like that. And then there's like the bamboo, and there's just all kinds of flora and fauna there. And so we were going down the mountain, and then we were off trail. So our guides in front of us had machetes, and they're like, and then we see the first sighting of a gorilla, which was a youngster up in a tree. And I'm like, oh, gorillas are in trees? I didn't know gorillas climb trees. And so I guess anyway. And so
I didn't know that either. So
yeah, well, the little ones, I don't know that the big ones go, but the little guys were kind of swinging up there. And then they alerted everybody, and we get around, and then everybody just settles for a minute, and then you take pictures, you hang out, and they're just quietly like chomp, chomp, chomping on their leafy breakfast.
Yeah, what are
where
they? I mean, are they wandering around you guys? I mean, you're just kind of sitting there while they wander around, or
yeah, they were a little spread out, but still kind of together. And we were kind of in one little quadrant watching them, but we weren't far. I mean, we were probably, I mean, it depends. I mean, I couldn't reach out necessarily and touch them, but probably 20 feet from them, something
that's
like that. So
close.
they're right there. And then there was a youngster who came up and touched the person next to me, like ran up, like, how little kids do, and they come and they touch you and they're like, oh, you're it. And they run off. So he did that. So the youngster ran up and touched the person next to me and like ran in the other direction. And so you're just like, "Ah," and so yeah, so you got to take pictures, and then the gorillas kind of, okay, let's move on down. So then they move, you move, they move, you move. And so yeah, so we got to see the little tiny baby. We got to see the silverback hugging on one of the mamas, which is very rare to see. So that was super cool. But yeah, it was like breakfast with the gorillas. And yeah, and then the hour was done and you're like,
Okay,
already?
that was my other question. It's just an hour. You're with them for an hour.
Just an hour from the first sighting. You're there for
Wow.
an
Okay.
hour, and then your guides really, they'll tell you stand here, do here, and then occasionally, if one of them, they can tell they're with the gorillas all the time, so they can tell if somebody's getting agitated, and so they start making some comforting noises, some kind of little grunty gorilla grunty things, just to kind of calm them down, like, hey, we're good, we're simpatico, and then it kind of calms down a little bit. But yeah, it was great. It was a lot of fun.
Since it's limited families of gorillas, the habituated ones, what kind of process is it to? Is it some sort of lottery to get selected? Like, how does this work?
No, what they do is they have a limited number of permits per day. And a permit does not guarantee a sighting. So a
Gotcha.
lot of times you'll do 2 days of permits. So maybe on like one day, have a day in between the other day. So that way, if you strike out on your first day, then you'll be able to see them on the second day. It doesn't happen a lot that you strike out, but it can happen. And you may have to. I mean, we lucked out because it took us maybe 15 minutes before we saw them, but you could hike for an hour or two at
Not see
least or
anything.
longer, and to see your gorillas. And so yeah, so there's a finite number of gorilla permits, and they're pretty spendy. So in Uganda, I think right now they're like 800 or 900 per day per person. If you go to Rwanda, they're about twice that.
Wow. Okay. And those are the only two spots, right? Rwanda and Uganda are the only two spots you can see gorillas, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. That's someone a while back, Jamie, who talked about just briefly about seeing the gorillas. I think she went to Uganda as well, but that's incredible. When they're there close to you and stuff, what are you thinking? What's going through your mind?
Honestly, I'm like, this is making a great picture. I think, I mean, of course, the obvious where it almost feels surreal. Like, are these really gorillas? Am I really here? Am I really here standing in front of these beautiful creatures? And you're trying to soak it all in. And then you're also smacking all the ants who are biting you on your neck and trying to get these great pictures and all that. But it just, when you see them, it does take your breath away, because they're so big and so beautiful. And I'll contrast that with the chimpanzees because same but different situation. It was more in a bog situation, so it was a little more swampy, and I mean, I got all kinds of muddy on that trek, and we followed a couple of different families. So it's not as you're not assigned a family with the chimpanzees, but chimpanzees are hunters. So, they hunt other monkeys. They can be aggressive. They're not just the cute little cheetahs that we see and all this. And so what I felt, and part of the reason I say in some ways I was even more jazzed with the chimpanzees is I had my adrenaline going because they're way taller than you think they are. if you've ever watched like the newer Planet of the Apes, and Caesar with that look in his eye, like, I got you, I'm coming. And they look at you and they have that steely look in their eyes, and you're like, don't hit me.
Yeah.
And so it was a lot. It was I felt I was very intimidated with the chimpanzees. And so we did the chimpanzees first. So the gorillas were like, they're leaf eaters. They're just having breakfast. So as long as
Much more
they're
mellow.
cool,
Yeah.
as opposed to, what are you doing here? Kind of thing.
Was the chimpanzees, was that in Uganda as well?
It
Or was that
was.
somewhere? It was. Okay, very good. So you can do both. Wow.
Yeah.
Incredible. Wow. All right. What other kind of adventurous travels have you that you would like to share? Because this is fun. I enjoy hearing these stories.
Well, let's see. Okay, so we talked about Antarctica. Patagonia is beautiful. It's some great hiking, just all kinds of beauty there. South Africa, seeing lions and elephants and giraffes. I love seeing the giraffes. They're just so graceful. That's to me, Africa is just so it's just so fun that way. Um, Gosh, there's just so many places. Even in Europe, you can find places that skew a little more adventuresome. So, like, you've got the Camargue there in France that nobody goes to. That's you have the canyons, and you have cowboys and things like that. So there's so many cool opportunities to be adventuresome. Once in Costa Rica, we went rappelling down waterfalls.
Oh,
That was
wow.
fun. That was really
Wow.
cool. So yeah.
Since you're into travel, something that I travel quite a bit for work. And so I'm always interested in like where I stay as far as like hotels and things like that. Since you meet with a lot of these hotels, is there a certain hotel somewhere where you're just like, wow, this hotel just has everything that Becky loves, that you love? Is there a certain place or a certain hotel that you love?
It so depends. I mean, and I feel like it's always like the last hotel I went to was my favorite,
Right.
kind of thing. But so, to me, I'll just name a few. It's not adventure, but like in London, I just went and met with the new Raffles Hotel at the OWO in London, OWO's Old War Office. And so it's the War Office. It's not the war rooms, not the Churchill war rooms where, they went underground, but it's the overground office. So, that's where, like, the James Bond characters were, true life, came from. Winston Churchill was there. You've got all the spies, all this kind of stuff. So that hotel there to me was like vintage perfection. It was just so cool. There was so much history, and it's brand new and it's elegant, and that was cool. I really, something a little different, in the Seychelles, the Maya. It's just gorgeous outside spaces and outside pools, and just the views there, in the Seychelles. I mean, I think to me, hotels, I like small hotels. I like somebody who knows my name, where they're friendly, where the answer is yes. I want the answer. It's like, sure, yeah, we got you. We'll take care of it. Those are some of my favorite hotels, where they get it. They make you feel seen and known, and they have beautiful spaces and beautiful views. Like, Casa de Casole in Tuscany. It's that beautiful Belmont property there. I could just name so many. Um, I don't have a favorite. I have lots and lots and lots of
Lots of
favorites.
favorites. Love it. As you're doing your traveling, as you're helping other people travel, what are some of the challenges and difficulties for you?
As I'm helping people travel, what are some of my difficulties? I think some are, mismatched expectations. I spoke about that just briefly earlier, where, especially as far as pacing, a lot of times it's so tempting to want to see so many things in one area. It's like, oh, we could go do this, and we could day trip here and here, and we're going to go hotel hop and all that. And sometimes it's hard to help people understand, yeah, it's only 4 hours away, but, that's far, so it would be, like, if you're looking at, like, let's say Indiana, and it's like, okay, so that would be like flying into Indianapolis, and in one day, going from the airport to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, taking the tour of the Speedway, and then driving up to Louisville, which is, oh, it's only 2.5 hours away, same day, to see the Louisville Slugger Museum, just to see the museum. It's like, in one day. It's like, that's
Yeah.
a lot, and so that's definitely a challenge, having that kind of ROI, of your time. And so kind of being able to create something where somebody feels like they've seen all these things that are on their list. So that's definitely a challenge. Other challenges can be over tourism is such a huge challenge. I mean, huge, huge, huge challenge, because you have this vision of how a place looks in your mind, or maybe you've seen it years ago, and then you go there and there are so many people. There are so many people there. And, the funny thing is, certain prominent, authors of travel books keep saying, oh, go to this cute little Italian region. I'm like, it is so full of people. Stop saying it's a
It's not
cute
so
back
cute and
door.
little anymore.
You've got this town of population of a couple thousand people, and they have 20, 30,000 people descend on it every single day, from backpackers to book toting travelers to cruise ship people. And so when you get there, you're person to person. And then the people are like pigeons, just alighting on every single step and little thing they can find to sit down so they can eat their gelato. And then they're just everywhere. And it's just a sea of crowded people. And then the funny thing is, you walk just a couple of blocks down and there's nobody. And so over tourism, and it's hard. It's not good for the communities. A lot of the money doesn't even stay in those locations. The money's, given to some of the other companies and things like that. So over tourism is definitely a challenge. And then, weather, disease, high prices, strikes. Oh my goodness, strikes. Train strikes, air traffic controller strikes, garbage men strikes, taxi strikes, all that. There's a lot.
And I'm guessing it's your job to keep up on all that. That way you can inform your customers, your clients, be like, hey, they're going on strike, by the way, or whatever the case may be, and just so people
Yeah,
have informed decisions.
it's true, and I'm super thankful of the way that I'm thankful but not thankful. The way, at least in Europe, when they strike, they're like, okay, so we're going to strike on the 12th and the 15th and the 22nd, and we're going to start at 7 a.m. and we're going to end at 7 p.m. and then that's it, and then wait till the next day, the next strike day. And so it becomes a little easier to advise that way. But yeah, but if you've lived through the strikes, and you kind of know how to, you've been through it a few times, and so you're like, okay, so this is what we're going to do. This is the plan B. Here's the plan C. This is how we're going to approach it.
And you've been traveling for quite a while, and you talked about the over tourism of places. Is there any particular place where you're like, you remember going back, in the early 2000s or late 90s, and then you go back now and you're just like, wow, I mean, it just totally got killed with over tourism.
For sure. I mean, a good one for me, and it's seriously one of my favorite places on the planet, just for the views and the food and everything. I feel like the Amalfi Coast is definitely that way. The prices have just they've soared, and just the number of people visiting. To me, the biggest example, at least in Europe, is like Cinque Terre, poor little Cinque Terre. It's gorgeous. It's gorgeous, and there's so many people who descend on that every single day.
What's the name of it again?
Cinque Terre, Cinqueterre, 5 lands. It's like um, all these little coastal towns, kind of in the Liguria area. So yeah, I mean, it's beautiful, it's stunning, and it's so stinking crowded. So, that's definitely an example. Venice is another example of that. And again, what happens is, and I was just speaking to a really good friend of mine who is partners at a Greek destination management company, DMC. And, she was saying that, some of the islands, they're going to start charging just a surcharge for people who come day trip, because what happens is they get off the ship, they get off the train, they get off the tour bus, whatever, and then they hang around. They might buy an inexpensive T-shirt from a vendor or maybe a gelato, and then they get back on, and they're just descending on the main public areas, and they're leaving trash. Things are getting torn up just from use and and all that. But they're not spending the money there. And so that's
Interesting.
kind of the problem with that.
Wow. Interesting. Never thought of that. Wow. Okay. Yeah, definitely some challenges. For you, we've been chatting for quite a while now. For you, what does the future look like? I mean, what do you kind of want to do as you move forward? And do you have any other particular plans or anything that you want to, any adventures that you want to go on?
Oh gosh, those are two big questions. So adventures on my list, definitely on my list is Cambodia. I'm talking to a friend, maybe next summer, we'll see. But kind of a Singapore, Thailand, Cambodia, just experience some fun things and all that. So that's high on my list. Also Tanzania, Kenya. I really want to go back to Africa. There's so much I haven't seen there. Egypt, I want to go to Egypt so incredibly badly. So I may just get a wild hair next year and just hop on over to Egypt, because I've got to go. I've just got to go. But as far as me, my company, it's always it's like, oh, I want to build my empire. It's like, oh, I want to keep it small. Oh, I want to build my empire. Oh, I want to keep it small. That kind of thing. So, definitely, looking at a, very intentional growth of my team, nothing crazy. But the biggest thing that we have going is 2 years ago, we launched our travel club for women called Chapela. And,
Ciao,
and
Bella.
so just, having that expand, we do a number of trips every year with them. But the most important piece, we just had an event last night, is we have local events in Atlanta, and we love to connect women who love to travel, in this curious explorer kind of way that we do. And so I just want to connect them, whether or not they ever go on a trip with us, I don't care. We want to have some wine, have some snacks. We're going to talk travel. We're going to do some fun activities together, and then we'll go on some trips together. And so I definitely, continuing to expand on that and to grow that, that's really where my heart is. And kind of, full circle from where we started is, out of the abundance of my passion. It's like, I want people to experience some of these things with me, because it makes it more special.
Love that. Thank you for sharing that. Where can people find you if someone's thinking, hey, I need to be consulted on a trip or what I want to do? Where can they find you? Or maybe there's some women who want to be part of this Ciao Bella travel group that you have. Tell us, where's your Instagram or your website, all that jazz, if you don't mind.
Absolutely. So you can find me on Instagram, My Bella Travel. You can find me on Facebook, Bella Travel Planning, and then my website, mybellatravel.com. So those are the three best ways to find me. Of course, I'm also on LinkedIn, like the rest of the world, all that. But, those are, I never check it. So anybody, sorry if you message me through LinkedIn. Sorry, I never see that. But I'm on Insta. But those are the best ways to find me.
All right. My final question. This is going to be a tough one for you because you've been to so many amazing places. Like you said, with the hotels, you have so many that you'd love. If you can only go back to one place, a place you've been, you can only go back to one place and that's it. And then you're done. Where's this place that you're going back to? Told you it's going to be tough.
I know it's really hard. Part of me wants to say Jordan. Part of me wants to say I'd love to go back to Uganda. There's just so many places. But to be honest, my heart's in Italy. I just love Italy. Along the coast where you have that turquoise water meets those the cliffs meets the, the beautiful food and all that. And like, my former stepdaughter would say, even the garbage men are beautiful. It's like, yes, I know, right? And so if I had to pick one place, just because it checks all the boxes, that's, I would, if I had to pick one country, I would go back to Italy every single time. Every single time.
Wonderful. I love it. Becky, thank you so much for coming on Journey with Jake.
You're welcome, Jake. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Becky Lukovic, for coming on the show and sharing your love of travel and adventure with all of us. Be sure and give Becky a follow on LinkedIn. Just kidding. Well, you can follow her on LinkedIn if you want, but she is active on Instagram at MyBellaTravel. And if you want more information on her services as a travel consultant, check out her website, bellatravelplanning.com. Thanks to all of you for listening to the show each and every week. It means a lot to me. If you could leave me a review or give me a follow on social media, that would be awesome. But I'm just happy that you're here. I appreciate it. I have a great episode next week with Dave Letterfly. Dave is such a fascinating guest. Dave is an artist, horse trainer, and was in the circus. Oh yeah, my conversation with Dave was a lot of fun, and I know you will enjoy it as well, so be sure and tune in next week. Just remember, it's not always about the destination, as it is about the journey. Take care, everybody.